It does kick in. It does.
No, ease me into it. I like this.
We're gonna eat. We are joined. Welcome to Bono's Health. We are joined by Rett Larson, coming to us from Newport Beach. He is the no zombies, but we were playing the zombies. We just had an epiphany that he should be doing more zombies, even though it's right there, man. Low hanging fruit, as he said. Rett, how are you today? How is sunny? I'm guessing sunny Newport Beach. Not a hard guess.
Yeah. Everything is it's great here. It's a little too early to be super sunny, but I have faith that it is going to get that way because it does 99% of days in this state. So
yeah,
can't complain.
I do miss. We were talking before, living in Dana Point and walking my dog on the beach, and pretty awesome, consistent weather. You pay the sunshine tax in California for sure.
Absolutely. You are currently watching my bank account go down. Like I am watching it in the corner of my screen. I just see this little line.
You got the ticker
just bleeding.
All right. Well, Mr. Rett Larson, you are making a name for yourself, and you've done that already. And I just was listening to you on Mike Robertson's podcast from January of this year. Folks should go check that episode out. Awesome episode. And you get into your whole career. And I think listening to it, I was like, this is what I envisioned for myself, working with national teams and doing all this kind of stuff. It sounds like, and just volunteering, and you got to work with the Indiana Pacers and just random kind of things. And that's how I think anyone who's worked in that professional realm can talk about. And I have tons of friends who've done that. I've had the chance to work kind of in that space, but never completely dedicate to that space. So tell us a little bit about, you don't have to go through your history because that's well documented on the internet. But I'd love to hear again a little bit just to set up for folks who have not had the chance to hear too much of your story. Just a little bit of that jumping around and anyone wants to hear them. I don't want to disservice your story, but you were going to be a lawyer, and then your family is like, let's try this other little thing out, and they were okay with you kind of not pursuing that law degree, it sounds like, or the law profession. Mm-hmm. I don't want to disservice your whole life story, but just wanted to kind of do a quick summary if that's okay, and you can fill in the blanks.
Yeah. So I had kind of forgotten I'd gotten into that kind of depth when I was talking to Mike, but that is all true that I had come from families of lawyers, and fortunately my family knows me and my personality well enough that they thought that I might stagnate there, and it wouldn't be the right place for my creativity or my particular skill set. So I started very small, just thinking about being a personal trainer. And then I kind of always thought that I would most like working with athletes because that's, I was slightly athletic in college, and I felt like that would be the place where my skills would be best used. And so I always was looking for the degree that could get me there. Like I didn't want to get a personal trainer certification. So my first certification I was going to get the gold standard certification. And so that ended up just getting my NSCA CSCS, which I think is lapsing right now, which is I should probably do something about that. Getting that certification put me in a whole different class of personal trainers once I got a job in a big gym in Atlanta, Georgia. And because I was actually the only personal trainer of like 30 personal trainers that had this degree, when the Indiana Pacers came looking for a personal trainer for their NBA players, I'm like the only one that can actually take the job. And so, I'd say it's lucky and fortuitous being in the right place at the right time, but it was also, I did have to take a harder exam to be able to get it. And I think that idea has stuck with me, that if you can suffer a little bit at the beginning, that can pay off for you at the end, like a lot of delay of gratification. So if you fast forward a decade, when I get the opportunity to go over to China and work with the Chinese like gold medal factory sports, that even though it was miserable to actually live over there, and that first year was miserable for all of us coaches, just a much harder living than we were used to, that I kept on thinking, if I can put my head down and suffer through this for a couple more years, it's only going to get easier. And like, I think things will start to materialize for me. And so, yeah, sure enough, after 3 or 4 years of living in China, I now can speak enough Chinese to coach without a translator, and I'm familiar enough and happy enough with the food and the culture and being able to, just be comfortable in China, that now I am a real asset. Like, now I have a skill set that not many other people do. And when the Chinese women's volleyball team is looking for a strength coach that has Western training experience, like, I'm pretty much the only guy that they can come looking for. And that turns out to be another super fortuitous thing, because they are by far the most popular and the best and most popular team sport in all of China, men's or women's. The women's volleyball team is incredible, and so they have big resources. So now, I get a big payday for having kind of suffered this for a while. And so, it's always, I guess, my advice to younger coaches is that the more you can bank, these skills and these certifications, like, do the hard thing first and put yourself in a position to be the guy when it matters. And that's worked out for me, handfuls of times in really big ways. And so now, I like to think of myself as at a point where I can just choose the jobs that I really, really want, with the coaches that I want to work with sports that I care about. And I hopefully can be in a position to just pursue interests that are really, really fun for me and expand, my skills as a person and keep me happy. But that's kind of it. And the other part I didn't mention is that I think another thing I did that really benefited me, and I've seen this happen in other coaches, is I worked with youth athletes for a decade before I really got back into training elite athletes. That between my first foray in personal training, which was with the Pacers and other Gen Pop clients, that I took 12 years off and worked for a sports performance training company, where I honed my ability to watch athletes, young athletes, as well as amateur and elite athletes, move, and just develop that coaching eye of being able to try to take out the things that are making them slow or not jump as high. And it's a much easier to do that with 14-year-olds and 17-year-olds and 8-year-olds than it is with NFL, cornerbacks that you're trying to diagnose. And so developing not only your coaching eye, but my ability to control groups, if you have a group of 6, 9-year-olds, that is a very special and very valuable skill set, to be able to keep those guys working hard, like so hard that they have no energy or they're so stimulated that they don't want to start picking on their friend or having a side conversation, that they leave a workout and they're sweaty, they're smiling, and they're running up to their parents. And when their parents say, "What did you learn today?" they actually have something to say. Like, if you can tackle that with a bunch of 9, 10-year-olds, then when you get to work with elite athletes, you have no idea how much those skills carry over. That I'm still thinking about how I can keep my 20-something elite $1 million athletes from having idle time in the weight room that they might want to have a side conversation. I'm still thinking about the flow of a warm-up so that I'm keeping them working, to the degree that I want. I'm still thinking about, what if somebody asks them what Rett's methodology is in the weight room? I would love for them to be able to articulate that in a way that I would also. So, like, am I making them smarter? I'm still thinking about all those things that were part of my triage checklist when I was coaching youth sports for over a decade. So I don't want to gloss over that part of my past, because I really know that it has paid dividends for me in my present, working with elite athletes.
Yeah, man, I love so many things in that answer. I just from want to jump that too, that you mentioned the flow of the warm up, that understanding. So I do want to touch on the no zombies concept. We opened the episode with the zombies song, zombie, not plural, but no zombies. I'm going to guess it's from people showing up being a zombie when they're just like, all right, I'm going to go through my warm ups. I'm going to do the same boring thing, 3 sets of 10 of rubber band pull aparts and this and that. So I'm guessing that's where it came from. Love to hear your talk on it. Again, if you guys go on there, his social media, you mentioned your program you're kind of putting together. You just have some sticks, you have some frisbees, you have some tennis balls. Here's some things we can do with that. So I'd love to hear you talk about the no zombies concept.
And it came from, exactly as you said, organically from working with young athletes for so long that, the Sports Performance Training Center where I worked was very groundbreaking and very, at the time, very groundbreaking in the way we did warm-ups. It was actually one of our biggest selling points of pride. We did 30 minutes of warm-up and the athletes would be exhausted afterward because it was really extensive. And that's where foam rolling was actually pretty new back then. This was right in 2000, 24 years ago. And so we had the massage sticks and foam rolling. We were teaching our athletes about this. Everyone was groaning. And then we stand them up and we teach them about thermogenics. And in our facility, there were 4 different kinds of thermogenics. You were either on the slide board, you were on the jump rope, we had this like elaborate jumping jack matrix that we could put them through. But at the end of the day, it still was a very limited amount of those things. And if athletes had come to us long enough, they would know the familiar beats of this, and they would put on their slide board booties, and they would kind of know what we were going to do first, second, third, fourth, and I could make little changes to it and stuff. But it got, and especially if you're a coach, it got repetitive, right? And it becomes less fun to coach the thing. Like, to be honest, like, you can get mired down in doing the same thing over and over again. There's new energy. Like, have you ever been in a gym where you got a new set of equipment? There's just breathes new life. It's like when you get new shoes, you're excited to go work out again, right? It breathes new life. And it might suck that that's the case, but that's just the reality of our psychology. And and our warm-ups, and then we did an active dynamic thing, and then we would do plyometrics, and then we would do neural response stuff. It was great. It was great for the time. But after 10 years of doing that, when the coaches said, hey, Rett, why don't we do something different on Fridays? And we started playing games on Fridays. And probably the most popular one, we had a basketball hoop, so we'd play knockout. And we would make it so that there was a lot more thermogenic. So if you've ever played knockout, you pretty much have to make a free throw before the person behind you makes a free throw. And so it's 2 balls and it's going really rapidly, and you get to the end of the line. We would make them run kind of a circuit around so it became a little bit more thermogenic so they'd actually get warm. We kind of thought through how we could make this a little bit more beneficial. And it would be the first 10 minutes of our 30-minute warm-up, because after that took the place of the slide board, jump rope, jumping jack series. Well, sure enough, Fridays become by far the most popular day. The coaches are excited about Fridays. The coaches are, smack talking about how good they are at we're jumping into the warm-ups because we want to play knockout. We have more people coming on Fridays than most other days because knockout's more fun. Like this one 10-minute part of our training that we just changed a little bit. And we got to remember, keep the goal, which is just to get tissue warm. All we're looking is to increase their body temperature. Like, we could do the same thing with a sauna and a bunch of sweatsuits, right? And so the epiphany is thinking, like, why aren't we endeavoring to just make the rest of the thermogenics more engaging and more interesting? We can do our jump rope stuff. We can do this. But are there other games that we could play? And so when I got out of that system, when I wasn't, and we were part of a big franchise, so you can't just go rogue on your own and doing crazy stuff. But when I got out of that system, and then I went to Exos and was part of their system when I was in China, and when that all left and I was left to my own devices, I thought, there's a better way to do this. And I can now, all these thoughts that have been percolating in my head, and to get back to your original question, that would slay these zombie athletes because especially if you're in a situation where you were just with one team all the time. And if I'm coaching 2 warm-ups a day, 5 or 6 days a week, they're getting 10 warm-ups from me in a week. And if I am doing the same warm-up or even the same 5 warm-ups, that's going to get repetitive to the point that they're going to be understandably able to walk in, immediately grab whatever thing that we're going to be doing that day, and they're going to be able to do it without me coaching them. Like, they're just going to be able to walk through it. And of course, like anything, some parts are going to get good. Some parts are going to get more sloppy as they get lazier. I'm going to get to be a worse coach. I'm going to be great about coaching it the first few weeks, and then I'm going to be giving less cues, and I'm going to be using less of the language that I should. I'm going to be relating it less to volleyball like I should. And so what I found is that if I can just spend a little bit more time every night before the following day and the 2 warm-ups I have to give, to make parts of those warm-ups unpredictable, parts of those warm-ups stimulating or interesting or exciting, then all of a sudden, just the fact that it's not the same gets neural excitement and turns the athletes on in a way that they haven't been before. So the novelty aspect of warm-up was one that I had neglected for so long. And when that light bulb went off, I thought, okay, I need to slay zombies every single time that they hit the gym. That I'm getting rid of things that are familiar beats. So, like, we're no longer going to be doing foam rolling during my warm-up time. That's complete zombie stuff. Do that before I start. Then once you're with me, game on, and now you better be ready, because I'm going to be challenging you. I'm going to be pushing your athleticism in weird ways, even ways that might not even look like volleyball. But remembering that all I have to do is get them warm and move them through ranges of motion that they're going to use on the volleyball court. It's a real low bar, Bo. Like, I can do that in a lot of different ways that don't leave them kind of sleepwalking through my warm-ups. And that's where No Zombies was born.
Oh man, I love the background behind that, and appreciate you adding that. And yeah, if anyone goes on, I just, again, as we were getting ready for this, just was looking at your social media. You had the one the other day, I think you posted the other day, with the volleyball players kind of laying face down, shooting the balls, and just playing catch with the tennis ball. Looks like it's shooting out of their butts, which visually very funny. But yeah, orthopedically very interesting, and the kind of thing that people just don't think about. And it's like, oh, that's weird. But at the same time, yeah, you look at it like, actually, that's a really good warm up. Even for anyone, again, familiar with Happy Baby, as like a yoga pose, it's kind of that same position, and it's just one that really opens up the hips, gets things moving, gets people more comfortable there. Yeah. So I love that.
This is the most wonderful time to be, to be trying to be better at warm-ups, because the internet is full of, Instagram is full of ideas, and you just have to have a good filter. And I think that's what I've developed. After years, I know what volleyball players need, and I'm like, oh, well, this is a ridiculous kind of strength challenge from the internet, but them struggling at it is going to put them in some really nice deep hip flexion positions that are very much like what my head coach wants them doing on the volleyball court. So I am, at very least, I can say tomorrow I'm going to sacrifice 3 minutes of a 15-minute warm-up to have them struggle at this challenge. And that might be the thing that they're talking about at lunch the next day. They might be trying it later that night in their hotel room, like with their roommate, seeing if they can get into this thing. That's the dream, is that you click into something that is, somewhat of a novel challenge, neurological challenge, feat of strength kind of challenge that is adjacent to volleyball, that has them excited about warm up in a way they hadn't been before.
Yeah, I just want to ask, and then it sounds like you're mostly doing group stuff, but if you have a one-on-one client, it sounds like it's the same model, or is it just more fun for groups? Or are you still kind of taking the one-on-one person through the kind of crazy stuff?
It is, I think it's certainly easier in groups. There's the group dynamic, there's team versus team that you can do with that. But individuals absolutely also have, I have spreadsheets upon spreadsheets of different things you can do with a one-on-one athlete if you're a personal trainer, that are more interesting than the typical calisthenics, jumping jacks, crawls, skips that are normally being done, that are reactive. It's the difference between asking an athlete, to get into big hip circles and deep knee bends, and then just taking a stick and lightsabering them to pieces while they have to try to get out of the way. It's just more stimulating and interesting. and functional, and it's, as we get more reactive, we get more functional. This is how the world works, and how we want them having to take cues from the environment around them, and and move their bodies in ways that react to it. So it's a win-win all the way around. It's a less boring session for you and your athlete. It's a more valuable session for you and your athlete. It just takes a different skill set. And in my opinion, coaches, at least for me, like, I'm happiest when I'm growing, when I'm learning something new. I've talked about, this year I introduced flow ropes to my athletes in a big way. We teased it the year before, but I really got into it over last winter, learning it. And it is so much fun to pick up a party trick like that. It's like the first time you Olympic lifted. Like when you first learned how to snatch, it is so much, you look forward to snatch day, because you're like, I cannot wait to finally put blue plates over my head. And like, it is, you have this thing that you're working towards, and it's technical, it's beautiful. And so when I find something like that got me personally interested in it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. Like, we have something that we're growing, and growth equals happiness. And so I think the coaches also want to be able to grow. And I'd hope so. I don't think that many coaches think that their warm up is the place that they might be growing in the next couple of years. But honestly, my opinion is it's one of the easiest ways for you to be different than the coaches around you. If I were dropped into a Planet Fitness right now as a personal trainer, like, I would be passively trying to put every other personal trainer out of business, because my athletes are getting so much stronger and faster, and we're smiling so much more than the other ones are. I just don't think that necessarily, I don't know if fun is the right word, but if that level of stimulus and just engagement and non-monotony is mutually exclusive to success and strength.
Yeah, and I think before we got on, we were talking about CrossFit, our kind of crossing paths in the CrossFit space, and we hadn't talked about it yet on the episode here, but for sure, I would say I took the CrossFit Kids certification, and there was just all these different ways to incorporate play. And talking about another big concept that I'm sure we could spend hours on is long-term athlete development. I'm sure, you're talking about the 9-year-old kids and 10-year-old kids and how that transfers over. But I did want to give a quick shout out to CrossFit, and again, how I think that group dynamic, again, that fun piece is like, oh yeah, like there's some, like, even if it's only for 10, 20 minutes of the beginning, and maybe some cool down stuff at the end. It's a different way to engage and have a little more fun, and do it in a community setting, and all these kind of games. There was like the pizza game, you hold the ab mat, you're serving things and someone's trying to knock it off. And I've seen some bad stuff too, which is where CrossFit gets some bad reputation sometimes. Back in the day at CrossFit NYC. Go ahead.
No, you've hit on something, which is that when gyms that, I don't know, when a gym sees that there's a potential revenue stream of starting to train young athletes, which is inevitable in a lot of gyms. Okay, we think we've tapped out. Let's see if we can get these homeschool kids in the area to come and train with us, and let's get an after-school program. Let's get the younger athletes. They will task like a person that doesn't necessarily have like a PhD in child development. They'll read, they might read a couple of journal articles about how young kids should be working out and what are the things that are contraindicated for that. But it's generally,
I'm going to jump in. And I'm assuming you're on the same page as me. And I had to dispel this myth yet again. And I'm still surprised it's still a myth that young kids can weightlift. People, they can weightlift. They should weightlift. They really, really should be weightlifting. Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you build growth hormone. You'll get bigger, stronger kids. You won't stunt growth.
More,
you will
more
do
coordinated,
the exact opposite.
right?
More coordinated, more confident. The list goes on.
We're on the same page, but
well done. But what I'm saying is, you will find coaches that just think that, it'll be a point of pride that we train our young athletes just like we train our elite athletes, and we just make the weights lighter and all this stuff. And when you have an organization that's as big as CrossFit, they can afford to actually get the people in the room that do have advanced degrees in child development and understand, and understand why Sesame Street is successful, and understand things like this, that understand how important it is to have the kids be stimulated and be brought into this, and not think that a coach that is great at training the fire breathers at 7 p.m. is going to have the same skill set that it takes to keep a bunch of 8-year-olds motivated for an entire session and to keep them excited about training. And you have to train that differently. And you can't set your worst, newest, rookiest coaches on the youth athletes because you think it's easiest when it's actually the hardest, and it's maybe the most valuable. You need programs that are set up with an eye towards the fact that athletes will try harder when their game's involved. That it's the difference between having a cone sitting there that you have to go around and having an athlete sitting there pointing which way you go. It's that subtle difference that actually makes it more effective because it's reactive and more engaging. Less kids sitting in a line and a kid that's actually engaged in the process doing something. And yeah, it is a particular skill set that I think a lot of programs don't understand. And when you get an organization as big as CrossFit, they can afford to get smart people on board to create a better program.
Yeah, I've learned a ton from all the certifications and time. And when I first got into CrossFit, and I think you were around the same time as me in that 2010 window. They had the journal, the CrossFit Journal, and you just go on the website, and they had that little list of resources and videos, and I was just like absorbing every single video and listening to some of these really cool concepts, and pick and choose. But for the most part, there's a lot of really cool stuff in there. How do I incorporate that into the world I'm in, whether it's with volleyball players on a national level or whether it's with a random, like local kids class, and these kids are just trying to, stay active, and their parents want them to have less ADHD or whatever it is. So I'm going to shift gears a little, if that's all right. I'm actually writing a chapter for a book, and my whole thing, I'm kind of taking, we were talking about Kelly Starrett, Juliet Starrett, the Ready State. Shout out to those guys I had on here before. And they talk about movement vital signs. And I love this concept. And I'm going to be kind of putting a chapter together for this collaborative book effort around movement vital signs. And with your background, I think everyone's already, hopefully, in less than half an hour, gotten a sense that you're a pretty knowledgeable dude. And with a wide array of backgrounds. So I would love to hear if you're the medical doctor, or you're the guy that someone says, hey, my kiddo here, I just want you to assess how healthy they are. Where should they go? What should they do? What can you narrow down, not to put you on too much of a spot here, but the top 3 things for a reference, again, in their book, the Ready State book, Kelly Starrett talks about, getting up and down off the floor is one of those kind of vital signs. How well can you do that? How well can you stand on one leg? I would love to know, and put you on the spot a little, of do you have 2 or 3 vital signs that we can talk about? Again, I'll give you some more time to think if you need it. I'm sure you don't need it. You can knock them out. But, medical doctors looking at your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your resting heart rate. What are you looking at when you have an athlete in front of you? Top 2 or 3 things, if we can put you on the spot there.
No, happy to. I think that your Starretts are going to be much better experts than I am. But when I think back to my time in working with youth athletes, as well as where I am now, we do a pretty, and I'm not a big testing constantly guy. And I don't believe in test days, but I believe in making sure that there are vital signs that we tick a couple boxes. I'm always keying in on ankle mobility to almost start. Like, I find that I get so many problems with my athletes when I leave that unchecked, that if we have ankles that don't dorsiflex well, that leads to problems up the chain in a big way. And so I'm pretty quickly trying to find ways, either through overhead squats, overhead squats against a wall, things like that can test that ankle mobility, or just using a goniometer on the foot, that we can suss that out. From there, I love testing kind of neural coordination, things as easy as jumping rope or picking up skipping patterns that I can make increasingly complex. That I want to make sure that athletes have all of that. From a functional movement standpoint, I probably, like, an overhead squat would be something that I would use to try to pick apart a couple different problems. and kind of go from there. But generally, it's not something that is. I'm lucky that for the last decade of my life, I have a medical staff that gets all of my red flags. And they do mostly the stuff that is from mobility and stability standpoint. They're helping me find that out. And so I am mostly looking at how quickly can my athletes pick up new movement patterns, how much, like who are my coordinated athletes, and who are my athletes that are elastic and bouncy, who are my athletes that are weak but fast, things like that are more interesting to me.
No, I love it. That's useful, and I appreciate you sharing that. I do want to be respectful of your time. I feel like we can keep talking for hours. Maybe we'll be able to coordinate a follow-up episode. But I wanted to finish off with anything. You mentioned you putting together this kind of warm-up concept, the sticks, the frisbees, the tennis balls. If you want to talk a little bit about that concept, that program, just promote that a little bit.
Well, though I've been thinking that in the future, I just imagine. All right, well, let me start over. There's this thing. Have you ever heard of the end of history illusion? The end of history illusion?
I have
I've
not.
been thinking. I've had this in the back of my head to make a post about it. But the end of history illusion is basically this bias that you have in your head that if I asked you like what your training was like 10 years ago, you would say, oh my God, it was so bad. I would hate for you to see a video of the way that I trained and the way that I thought. I would hate for you to see my haircut 10 years ago. I'd be embarrassed if you saw my playlist on Spotify 10 years ago. All right. But if I asked you, how much do you think your training will change in the next 10 years? Almost everyone says, not too much. I think I pretty much got it figured out. And yeah, I think that's maybe it will tweak a little bit. Maybe I'll discover a couple things, but it'll pretty much just be the same. And that's, of course, an illusion that you can see a lot of change. You just don't imagine yourself changing very much going forward. And I look back 10 years to the way I was doing warm-ups, and that's not at all what, like who would have guessed that I'd be known for this now. But I suspect that in 10 years time going forward, that if you looked into gyms, there would be a corner where there are 12 long sticks. There's a dozen frisbees. There's a sack full of tennis balls. There's some short sticks. There are some medicine balls. There's some aqua bags. There's some flow ropes. And every single warm up, the coaches are going over to get a set of that equipment for their warm up for their group that day. And they have a list of things that they'll do with those short sticks that will complement what might be going on in the session that day from a movement standpoint, or not, or just challenging the coordination and athleticism of a group of athletes in a different way than they've ever seen before. And for me, that is just a no-brainer and keeps your athletes more happy and stimulated and makes them better overall athletes, as well as being a very fun way to coach. And so I'm trying, and I understand that that's gotten easy for me because I've just been accumulating this library of activities for every single piece of equipment that I have. And I've been accumulating a war chest of equipment that I can, buy for cheap and use with a lot of people. And what I've understood from being on the internet and social media is that a lot of people struggle with that. So I'm trying right now to just put together lists of, kind of accessible lists of what I do with tennis balls. And so if you just go out and spend $15 on a big sack of tennis balls, let me show you all of the things you can do that are fun, that are strength challenges with tennis balls, agility challenges with tennis balls, speed challenges with tennis balls, mobility challenges with tennis balls. And one piece of equipment can just open up your warm-up world. And I'm going to, over the next couple of months, start rolling those out for a pittance, for a couple of bucks, just to help people grow, their skill set and hopefully make everybody happier. Because, like I said before, I think that even coaches want to grow in this way. And so that's what I got working on, right? That's what's percolating right now.
Love it. I love it. Yeah. Definitely something needed. I think a lot of people, they'll see stuff and not really understand how to connect those dots as well, especially the younger personal trainers that we see out there. And they're like, oh, this is a cool thing. And yeah, maybe they see that it's fun, but not necessarily understanding how to safely do that, how to actually get the client to be excited about it, or just past the concept of like, no, I need them to feel their quads burning, because if they're really sore tomorrow, that's the only thing that matters. And yeah, not to throw too much of shade that direction, but yeah, Rhett,
I've been that guy.
Yeah, I think everyone has, and like you said, that I like that end of history illusion. Yeah, being able to look back and say, "Wow, that was pretty stupid thing I did," and and yeah, hopefully 10 years from now we're a little wiser, and not stuck in our ways. But yeah, sometimes some things work, but who knows? Anyway,
Yeah, it's just another tool in the tool belt. I mean,
that's it.
it's something to be used when you think it's useful, and so I'm happy to help if I can.
That's it, man. Love it. Love your efforts. Love your time. Love your message. The Rettasaurus on Instagram. Go check him out, guys. Any other social media or anything else you wanna tell people where to find you or connect with you?
You can find me most places, but I'm really focusing on making sure that Instagram has everything first. So Retasaurus on Instagram will take you there.
We need to get a little link, I think, in your bio or whatever. But
Yeah,
I think,
I need to get better about all this.
Yeah, I was trying to copy your bio and Google you, but yeah, you're out there. You're out there. You're easy to find, but also we'll get you out there, man. You'll be all right. I think you're gonna be okay. Guys, go check him out. Rett Larson. Thank you for your time, sir. Signing off. Hope everyone got at least 1% better from today's show, and we'll see you next time. And we're signing off.